Christ is risen from the dead, by death trampling down upon death, and to those in the tombs he has granted life.
My name is Father Conan Gil. I am the priest here at St. George Greek Orthodox Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
My name is Gabriel Cremeens. I also work here at St. George as the full-time music director and, in general, leader of the liturgical ministries here at the church.
I think people are surprised when they come into an Orthodox church and they figure out that 98% of what's done here is sung. And I think there's a reason we do that, because it's what we're proclaiming here is a heralding. It's the good news. It's the best news. And what is that news? It's that Christ has resurrected from the dead. And he gives us now that grace, that gift of resurrection. So, growing up, if I used to play soccer, and when I would win a soccer game, I didn't come home like Eeyore the donkey and say, "Oh, I won my game." I didn't say that at all. I came home and I go, I won, woohoo, Eye of the Tiger. I would sing it. I think that's the reason we sing in the church, because we're so excited about the good news of Christ's resurrection. So everything is sung.
Yeah, as Father said, depending on the service, anywhere from part of it to most of it to the vast majority to all of it will be sung. Anyone who comes and visits on a Sunday morning for the Divine Liturgy, they're going to hear, as Father Conan just said, like 98% of the service being sung, even parts that people might not expect to hear being sung, like the scriptural readings from the Gospels or the letters of St. Paul or the other saints who wrote letters that are contained in the New Testament. Even those are sung. A lot of that has to do with our continuation as Orthodox Christians of historically the Christian communities arising out of the worship of the Jews, and simply continuing the traditions that they had from them. Obviously, as Christianity continued to grow and develop, it separated from Judaism. It became its own thing, so to speak, developed its own musical traditions. But we see over and over again in the Bible, in the Old Testament, references to singing in worship in the Psalms, and that continues into the New Testament when various figures have had visions of heavenly worship and what that looks like. And that always includes singing by the angels, praising God. And here in the Orthodox Church, we try the best that we can to imitate, and for our worship to try to imitate that heavenly worship that has been revealed in the Scriptures. I feel that I can't speak in great detail in terms of comparison. I've grown up in the Orthodox Church my whole life, and I don't have a lot of exposure to other Christian musical traditions. One thing that sometimes surprises people that they might not necessarily have expected when they entered an Orthodox church is that traditionally all Orthodox church music is sung a cappella. There are no musical instruments of any kind. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first one, the theological one, is that the only instrument, so to speak, created by God is the human voice. All of the other instruments that we have, as beautiful as they are creations of human beings, whereas God himself created the human voice. The other more historical reason for our not using instruments in worship has to do with Christianity setting itself apart and in opposition to idolatrous worship of idols at the time that the church began to grow and develop. Instruments in worship were very much a pagan thing. At that time, the church made the conscious decision to not have its worship resemble anything that was pagan or idolatrous. I don't think the importance or the significance of this hit me either until I was talking to one of our introductory classes here at the church about music, and someone asked a question about the hymns that we sing in church and when they originated. And the Orthodox Church has a huge corpus of hymnography. Much of it is inspired by the Bible in various ways, particularly the Psalms, but there's a huge amount of original hymnography that was written primarily by saints, but also by some other hymnographers who are not necessarily recognized as saints by the Orthodox Church, but their work is nonetheless included in our worship. The vast majority of that hymnography was written prior to the year 1000. So what people are hearing here in our worship is, in a very real way, a connection with the early church. One of the earliest hymnographers for whom we have a name attached to specific poetic works is Saint Romanos the Melodist, who I believe he died in the 500s. And then the vast majority of what someone will hear on a Saturday night or a Sunday morning is written by Saint John of Damascus, who's a couple centuries later in the 700s. Our hymnography, by and large, is very old. It's been sung by the church continuously since the time that it was written. So it has over 1,000 years of ongoing practice, both in terms of the words themselves that are being spoken or being sung rather, and also the musical tradition itself. Byzantine chant has this unbroken tradition of being practiced in worship for well over 1,000 years. I think it's important that if someone wants to appreciate the musical and hymnographical tradition of the Orthodox Church, that they attend not only a divine liturgy service on a Sunday morning, so to speak, but also services throughout the week and at various times of the year. The Orthodox Church has a number of different liturgical cycles that overlap and interact with each other, and they move in different ways relative to each other. So every service is different. The Divine Liturgy has probably some of the least variety in it. The Divine Liturgy is mostly fixed in terms of, at least in terms of the words that you hear being sung. The musical settings, probably due to that fact, the musical settings can be quite varied, and we'll sing different versions, different musical settings of the same hymn because the words themselves are mostly the same from week to week at the Sunday Divine Liturgy, which is the normal Sunday morning service. But the other services, Vespers, which we have here at St. George without fail every Wednesday and Saturday night, and sometimes on other weeknights as well. Orthros or Matins, which we also offer at least once a week on different days. That's the service that generally takes place right before the Divine Liturgy. Those services change drastically pretty much every time that we offer them. And again, that's based on these different liturgical cycles that the church has, and depends on what the calendar date is, what time of year it is. Are we in Lent leading up to Pascha, Easter, the celebration of the resurrection? Are we in the period before Christmas? Are we in August? Are we in the first 14 days of August before we commemorate the repose, the death of the Virgin Mary? There are all these different cycles, liturgical cycles that take place throughout the year, and our hymnography is determined by the interaction of those cycles. And so outside of the liturgy, there's this huge musical and poetic variety in terms of what someone would experience if they came and prayed at those services. There's not a fixed number of choir members that's necessary to give in service. That's also probably an important distinction to make, is the different types of liturgical music that exist in the Orthodox Church. Here at St. George, we're at a so-called Greek Orthodox Church. The musical tradition that we practice here is called Byzantine Chant. By most people, it's also sometimes called the Psaltic art, as in psalms. But Byzantine Chant is how it's known by most people. That's what we practice here at St. George. If you go to most other Greek Orthodox churches, you'll hear the same music being practiced. It's sung in Greece. It's sung in countries in the Middle East. It's sung in Romania. There are a number of countries surrounding Greece that have both their own local musical traditions. Serbia is a good example. They have both their own local musical traditions, but they are also fluent, so to speak, in the practice of Byzantine chant, and they use that as well. And Byzantine chant in particular is seeing something of a revival that started in the recent past and is continuing today. There's just been this explosion of interest in it and a revival of it, even in places where it had historically, say, fizzled out, like Russia, for instance, where it's beginning to be revived there as well. To the question as to the number of people in the choir, for an Orthodox church in general, we couldn't necessarily point to a specific number, like, oh, you have to have at least this many people. I suppose if you're singing some type of 4-part harmony, you'd need at least 4 people. But different Orthodox churches have different musical traditions. For Byzantine chant is what we call monophonic, which means there's only one melodic line of music. So you need one person to sing that. And then ideally we also have, it's not exactly a second part, but something that we call the isokratima, or just ison for short. You could call it the drone in English. And we really like to have that when we chant, but it's not strictly necessary. So if there's a service during the week and I'm the only one there, then it's just me chanting. We like to have at least 2 people so that we can have both the melody and the drone, the ison that I just mentioned, and then we alternate back and forth. One person will sing, the other one will hold the drone, and then we'll switch off. Here at St. George, in terms of what you'd hear at a service, anywhere from just me, as I said a moment ago, all the way up to on a Sunday or a big feast day when we have everybody, 9, 10, 11, 12 people all surrounding the chanter stand up here at the front of the church where we sing. We have, here at St. George anyway, we have both men and women that sing together during the services. Sometimes we're just one choir all together. Sometimes we split off, and the men will be one choir, the women will be another choir, and we'll sing back and forth with each other. There are children at the chanter stand as well that are there slowly learning to participate and learning the art just by osmosis, by being there and learning in the service as we worship together.
Na na, glory to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. When Mary Magdalene proclaimed the good tidings of the Savior's resurrection from the dead, and of his appearance to her. Thy disciples did not believe, and were reproached for their hardness of heart. But they were armed with signs and wonders, and were sent forth to preach. And you, O Lord, were taken up to the Father, the source of light, and they proclaimed the word everywhere, confirming it with wonders. Wherefore we who have been enlightened through them glorify your resurrection from the dead, O Lord, fresh